Well, welcome back to the class with a name that's longer than the line at the DMV. I want to apologize because I lied last week. I said we were going to get into what we want to aim at a little more, and actually I want to take a little side road really quick because we're on week 8. And so we are 2/3 of the way through this class, and when we were at 1/3 of the way through this class, we took a detour and talked about tools. And so we're going to take a detour and talk about some more tools. I want to give you guys something a little bit more practical that you can implement hopefully today, or if not today, soon in your life, but something a little less philosophical or theological, psychological, and let's actually talk about some practical things. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is coming from Surfing for God. And it's all in this chapter about soul care. And this is chapter 12 for anybody who's following along at home. And he splits it up into 3 different categories, and I'm only going to really focus on one of them. But just for the sake of completeness, we're going to talk about the first category, where he says is your brokenness or soul brokenness. All right, if you're broken inside, what's your baggage? Well, and that's the first step, right, is identifying what is your baggage. What are your wounds? How are you scarred? And then connecting that brokenness to porn consumption, right? Actually understanding how your wounds connect to your behavior. This is all stuff that we've kind of talked about before. He talks about it in depth, but we've talked about it before. This kind of falls under the banner of know thyself, right? So that was that idea in 30 seconds. What I want to dwell on is this next category, which he calls soul attentiveness. How do you pay attention to yourself and know what you need to do on a moment-by-moment basis? And he has 4 different, I call them tools here. I'll hit the first 2 here, but the 3rd and 4th ones are the ones I want to focus on. The first is stalk your triggers, right? What sets you off? And the examples in the book are really as practical as you're alone at home, or you see a redhead, or like really practical, really easily measurable, definitive stuff. And so and I love this word stalk. All right, not just what sets you off, not know them, but stalk them, like follow them around, get a good understanding of precisely what sets you off. The second one is interrogate your cravings, and he has this imagery of, being in the interrogation room at like a police station, and so you have the gray room and the table, and there's nothing there, and there's the one light bulb hanging in the room, and the person sitting at the table, and they're kind of sweating, and you come in as the cop, and you kind of bang on the table, and you intimidate them. All right, that's his analogy of you're going to interrogate your cravings. And maybe it's weird to think about your cravings as talking to you, but they absolutely can. And so once again, this is going to be getting into, as opposed to your triggers, what sets you off. What do you feel deep inside? What are your desires? What are you craving? And understanding them is crucial. Moving on. The one I really want to focus on first is surf your urges. And this I'm going to read right out of the book here. All right, surf your urges. It says, by now, you probably understand that white-knuckling and gritting your teeth is not going to take you to the root of your lust issue. Sure, at times you need to exert your will and resist temptation. But if you only suppress them, your urges and cravings will come back to you with even greater ferocity. One way of dealing with these is to practice urge surfing. Addiction researcher Alan Marlett from the University of Washington coined the term urge surfing by comparing addictive cravings to ocean waves. Cravings, like waves, start small, gain momentum, and eventually dissipate. In fact, the most intense cravings and urges rarely last more than 30 minutes. If you try to swim through a decent-sized wave in the ocean, you will be drawn under the water no matter how hard you resist. However, if you turn and ride the wave as it passes by, you will be able to continue your swim. Urge surfing is similar. Rather than fight cravings directly, you can consciously acknowledge the urges and ride them out until they pass. Here's an example of what urge surfing might look like with porn or lust. Say you are home alone and haven't looked at porn for 2 weeks. Suddenly, you start thinking about going online and surfing for porn. The first step is simply to observe. Sit comfortably in a chair and take a few deep breaths to get you centered. Then, take an inventory across your body. Where is the urge coming from? Where do you feel it? Is it a feeling in your gut, in your shoulders, genitals? What is the sensation? Is it emptiness? Is it tingling? Anxiety? Now comes the part that might require a little courage. Speak out loud what you are experiencing. I'm feeling a craving... ... It feels like butterflies in my stomach. It's a light, hollow sensation. Say whatever you are experiencing 3 or 4 times out loud. Now that you have observed what the craving is, the next step is to focus. Direct your focus on that one specific area where you are experiencing the urge. Notice the exact sensation. Focus on the lightness or hollowness or tension. Observe how large of an area the sensation takes up. Is it the size of a baseball? Is it the size of a pinprick? As you focus upon the sensation, describe it to yourself out loud. For example, my heart rate seems faster. I can feel my face flush. I feel an energy in my temples. As an outside observer of yourself, keep noticing the sensations and experiences and describe them out loud. The third step is to refocus. Return again to each part of your body where you are experiencing the urge or craving. Are you able to observe any sensory changes? You may perceive after several minutes of urge surfing that the cravings have decreased or altogether disappeared. It's important to say here that the point of urge surfing is not to eliminate cravings, but to experience them differently. Instead of running into the wave of craving, you are riding on top of it. Knowing that you can ride even the biggest wave is empowering. In the early stages of recovery, you can practice this until you are so familiar with the urges that they no longer trouble you. All right, so that's the first tool that I really think is important tonight. Urge surfing is a very useful tool. It takes a little bit of practice, but getting to know yourself of saying like, man, temptation's hitting really hard. and I'm going to say this for my personal temptations, because the tempter is right there whispering in your ear saying like, you don't have time for this. You don't have time to ride this out. Just do your business, and then you can get right back to being productive or whatever it is. And nope, it's important to be able to say like, hey, this feeling is just a feeling and it will not last forever. It is temporary. It will pass, and I can weather it. And we went through some tips on how to weather it there. So, surfing urges. Our next tool here is carry your tension. And once again, I'm going to read right out of the book here. All right. In his book, The Holy Longing, Catholic priest and seminary president Ronald Rolheiser tells a story from a class he attended in graduate school. One day, as his professor was lecturing on sexuality and morality, the issue of masturbation was raised. A student stopped the professor dead in his tracks with an audacious question. Do you masturbate? The professor's immediate reaction was anger at the student's blatant disrespect. He turned away from the class, faced the blackboard, and was silent. After he composed himself, he turned and addressed the student. My first reaction is to tell you that you are out of order and that you have no business asking a question like that in this class or anywhere else. However, since this is a class on moral theology, and in the end your question has some value, I will in fact answer you. Yes, sometimes I do, and I'm not proud of it. I don't think it's very wrong, and I don't think it's very right either. I do know this, though. I am a better person when I don't, because then I am carrying more of the tension that we, all of us, should carry in this life. I am a better person when I carry that tension. Of the hundreds of men I've counseled about their sexual addictions, not one of them has told me that after masturbating, he felt stronger, more confident, and more vitally connected to the deep parts of his soul. Debates over whether or not masturbation is a sin totally miss the point. I want to emphasize that. Debates over whether or not masturbation is a sin totally miss the point. The crucial question is not whether masturbation is right or wrong. The question is, as it is with any thought or behavior, does it hinder our spiritual, emotional, and social maturity? Does it stand in the way of love? That as a tool might not sound very much than just, oh, buck up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and move through it. But I believe that there's a perception change there that's important. A change on how we perceive what might be called the same phenomenon. Anyways, to finish out this chapter, Cusick then talks about the final category, which is the conclusion on soul care, which is just, what does my soul really need right now? And then, how do I begin to meet those needs in a legitimate, healthy way? Those are both really important questions to get in the habit of asking yourself. But, as this was a week on tools, I really wanted to draw your attention to those two that I drew your attention to. Surf your urges and carry your tension. The next thing that I want to say is, if you think all the way back to, oh my goodness, week 2, we said that the just say no, oh man, the word just left my head, series of advertisements was not effective. That in fact you have to pursue something generative. Well, we're going to actually talk about that now. Something generative. Well, one that immediately comes to mind might be the word purpose. What is your purpose? And I think purpose is a decent word. It's not my favorite because it sounds kind of singular to me. I don't think you necessarily have one purpose, unless that purpose is to be a child of God, but that then includes all the other things that make you up. Like, is your purpose to be a father, to be a husband, to be a good employee? All those things fall under the banner of being a child of God. I much personally, and this is just a personal preference, I much prefer the word meaning. What in your life gives you meaning? What do you find meaningful? And I think meaning is an awesome word to talk about, and we can spend a lot of time today talking about it, but we're actually not going to. Because when we talk about pursuing something generative, we immediately are going to go to what gives you meaning in life. And I think for a lot of people, they will fall by the wayside, that of simple delight or joy. And so we're going to talk about, how do you pursue delight daily? So this is coming out of Unwanted. All right. Pursuing delight is a daily endeavor. The very best activities to pursue are those that help you engage your senses. Swimming, cooking, music, and the outdoors are all good places to start. One of the most significant things a friend has ever done for me. I still can't believe this. One of the most significant things a friend has ever done for me was to buy me an expensive set of headphones. He thought it was absurd that I worked in the mental health field and rarely listened to music. He was even more devastated to learn that when I did listen to music, I would use cheap earbuds. He dropped off a pair of headphones at my house and spent the next few months educating me on various types of music and their histories. my life, and more importantly, my bus commute transformed. In the past, I'd sit packed like a sardine on a loud bus trying to make out the words to a lecture amidst the cacophony of other noises. Music, through good headphones, was a magical new world. In the past, I've cried to the meaning of songs, but never just to the sound of music. It may seem strange to say, but hearing music led me to a more sensual life. The more I was attentive to music, the more I found myself feeling the breezes against my skin, and the more I was able to smell in a way that made my mouth water. If we have ears to hear, eyes to see, and skin to feel, there is a wild and sensual world that awaits us. Here are some ways that you can build a routine of joy and delight. Number 1, you could get a yoga or gym membership and go there 3 or 4 times a week. Focus regularly on your breathing. Aim for at least 7.5 hours of sleep. Stop using your phone, tablet, and television a half hour before bedtime. Buy an excellent pair of headphones. Make a playlist of beautiful, relaxing music. If you can't find a list you like on Spotify, ask a friend to compile one for you. Some of us remember what it was like to receive a burned CD from a friend. A playlist can feel the same. I want to say really quick that as I was putting this lesson together, that reminded me to do that, and so I went and listened to Claire de Lune on YouTube, and that made my week significantly better. What else you can do? Put 4 or 5 things on your calendar each month that bring you delight, and make a special color for them. This could be a vacation, a movie, a new restaurant, a hike, a concert, a sporting event. Research has shown that anticipation of something pleasurable is the most enjoyable experience, not the memory or the actual experience in the present. Show your updated calendar to your significant other, friend, or therapist. You could visit a national park. Spend a day in your city's art museum. Spend intentional time bringing healthy relaxation and sensuality to your life. If you have the financial means, schedule spa treatments in the next 12 months. If possible, pay for them now and put the appointments on your calendar so you have no valid excuse not to go. The point is to put your body before beauty. Go out and be around beauty. I'm going to jump ahead here. When you cook your favorite dish, do you savor the sights and smells along the way? When you see a hummingbird, do you marvel at its flight? When you watch an Olympian, do you experience awe for their ability and dedication? Every day, if we pay attention, God solicits us to simple experiences of sensuality. One of my jobs I've held over the years is being a lecturer at the City of Seattle's John School. This is a program for men who have been arrested for soliciting women for prostitution. For almost a decade, I have started each class by asking each of them to pay attention to what their bodies are feeling. Most of them report feeling tired or stressed from a long day of class. I hand out fresh mint to them and ask them to smell it and pay attention to any shifts that occur in their bodies or energy. Smiles often fill the room. Of all the men I've invited to smell mint, only one has reacted with anything other than delight. He had spent much of his life working in mint fields. He was, perhaps understandably, visibly repulsed. Inevitably, these men share stories of why they like mint. Mojitos, mint tea, mint gum, and peppermint essential oils. I continue to invite them to pay attention to their bodies as they take olfactory dimensions of the mint. When they do so, they say their bodies feel calmer, safer, and more enjoyable. What I am inviting them into is how to be sensual men without needing to be erotic. I want them to behold the goodness of their sensual abilities. I want them to see that sensuality is about opening our bodies to being present, aroused, and influenced by the world around us. If we do not feel wonder at the flight of a hummingbird or eagle, or at the scent of mint, how will we even begin to feel the stunning sensuality of sex? It is crucial for you to learn sensual activities that care for your body and arouse it in non-erotic ways. That's it. That's the last tool for tonight, is what brings you joy. Because a lot of us will use pornography as a painkiller. It's like, okay, well, you might associate that with the pleasure. What other kinds of pleasures are there? Because God has made you for pleasure, right? Even as Christians, we believe that before the fall, there was sex. We believe that, well, maybe not believe. I assume at least that there was music, that there was beauty. There were sunsets, there were colors, there were flowers. And this is getting more into my personal theology, so maybe I'll stop here. But I believe it is a fundamental property of joy that it wants to be shared. And that was a big part of God's intent in creating us.